My name is James. I'm the plumbing contractor. I'm the foreman. I did this whole building. We'll go over the hot water heaters and stuff. The building is pretty much maintenance-free plumbing-wise. There's a couple things I'll show you. We'll walk through. Basically, my biggest thing to show you is all the isolation valves for everything. These three lines here, and I'll point it out as we're going, is the hot, cold, return lines. Goes one loop around the whole building. Everything's tagged, labeled. And we'll just start with all the fixtures going down, and I'll just kind of give you an idea where all the isolation valves are for you guys, if there's ever any issues. So for the sinks here, water feeding the ice maker for the refrigerator. We have all our isolation valves up here, hot, colds. You can see the hot water return line right here. We have our balancing valve, check valve, another isolation valve. All our valves have tags on them. You guys have tag numbers that tell you what shuts off what. Every appliance has its own isolation valve in the building. They're usually within close proximity of the fixture, overhead. And then obviously underneath the sinks, there's always stops, isolation valves to shut them off. There's not too much on the second floor. Right above us here is when you're going out of this stairwell, there is a mop sink, janitor's closet, and the two water lines feeding up right here are those isolation valves. All right, so those same three plumbing lines that went out into the kitchen area, right here again, domestic, cold, hot. They loop back through. What they feed in here, so same thing, you have another outside hose bib right here, isolation valve, and then you have your makeup water that goes out to the cooling tower. All right, this goes out underground, out to that cooling tower. As far as me with the plumbing contractor, my responsibility was from this backflow preventer back. After here, that was the HVAC contractor, all them. Now this is your backflow preventer. This stops cross-contamination in the building because if they have any chemicals, anything like that in the cooling tower, it will not backwash into the building. If there's ever a drop in pressure, say a main break somewhere out there, you know, there can be a drop in pressure, a vacuum's created, it could suck any of that contaminated, non-potable water back into the system. The backflow preventer stops that. I don't know what the commission does. In New Jersey, I know we're on the Pennsylvania side, but it's a dual commission, Jersey, Delaware, or Pennsylvania. These should be tested annually by someone who's certified. I'm certified. I tested them all as we installed them. They should be done yearly just because of that, and make sure they're working properly. Like I said, you don't ever want any cross-contamination for some reason back into the building with the non-potable water that it's feeding, whatever equipment. So that's up to the commission what they want to do, but these should be tested annually. In New Jersey, that's law. So.
Do you think it's a good idea to shut these off in the wintertime? Or can you just leave them flow?
You can leave them on. So all the hose bibs are frost-free or non-freeze. So
okay.
It actually comes into the building here. So every time you shut it off, there's about a 8-inch stem in there. Yeah. It lets the water out.
Okay, all right.
All right. Same thing, here's these three plumbing lines again, hot, cold, domestic. They go that way, back through the kitchen. For the mop sink right here, isolation valves are right overhead right there. Same thing, off of right here, we have part of the return line with the balancing valve. The return lines in the system basically constantly loop hot water. So when you turn your fixtures on, pretty much have hot water within instantly or a couple seconds. So it's constantly on a loop.
Where's the pump for that?
That's in the mechanical room by the hot water heater. I'll show you that. And that's on a timer. I'll show you guys a timer. So it's not running 24/7, but I think I have it running for about 16 hours, pretty much from early in the morning to late at night, kind of the hours that people are here. All of your faucets and flushometers for this job, for the toilets, urinals, are all sensor operated. They're all battery operated. The flushometers, 2 Allen key screws on top, pop those off. AA batteries in there, they need to be changed. It's sensor and it's also manual.
You have to shut the water off beforehand or no?
Yes. So,
Shut the water off first before you change the batteries?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
all right. That's good.
all right, you can use flathead screwdriver and shut it off at the valve right here on the flushometer. Also, in this bathroom, directly overhead, this is a drop ceiling. So, there's a main valve right overhead for the cold and the hot.
Okay.
All right, and then same thing for all the faucets. Here's your control. 3 little screws, take that off, and I believe that's 4 AA batteries in there. The 3 main plumbing lines, as they come from that back kitchen area through that mechanical room overhead, they go right through here, right outside of this wall.
To the other bathrooms?
Yep, and this is them coming through. Right here, they feed the women's side of the gang bathroom down here. They feed the men's side, and then they also go up and feed the gang bathrooms that are upstairs. So in the men's side access panel here, this is going to be your main cold water feed for the men's and women's side for the toilets, urinals, just in the chase in here. This will shut off your cold water for the toilets on both sides. All right.
Both sides?
Yep, yep. For your sinks, you have a set of isolation valves for your hot and cold here. This will shut off the sinks down here and the ones up above, directly overhead in the gang bathroom. Same thing with these sinks as the other faucet. Underneath the panel here, panels pop off. You have your battery packs underneath for all those. Same thing, same flushometers, batteries, those can be taken off. Again, if you ever just want to isolate one, unscrew this, flathead screwdriver, turn to the right to shut it off. When you're turning these back on, if you ever have to isolate them, no, you just turn them back on and your water flow, if you open it all the way, especially on a urinal, you'll flush it. It might give it a little too much water and you'll get some splash out, so you might just have to kind of, yeah, just kind of would turn it on, flush it, see what you get. You might want to throttle it down, throttle it up.
Okay.
That's all.
Is there like a...
Yeah, clean out plate down there. That's just if you ever have to snake the system, if it backs up, there's a clean out cover right behind there. I have one there. Same thing for the system. You have another one out here. Clean out cover behind there for the snake. Same thing, we have them in the ground.
Oh, okay.
As far as the sanitary part of it, I put everything in per the drawings. There's really no deviation. So if you guys have the drawings forwarded to you or you guys have a copy of them, the plumbing drawings, where it shows it on the plumbing drawings is where I put it in. Just so, if I really don't deviate at all. We send a set of as-builts if there is any deviation that's marked up, but you guys should have those drawings. Everything's exactly where it shows. So plumbing lines continue here. Shoot back into these offices. So right on the other side of this wall were the 3 plumbing lines, hot, cold, return. They come through here. They're actually overhead in this closet. They come through this office. 3 of them go through this office, this office. They are essentially right here through this office into the mechanical room.
So there's no valve or anything?
You do have a set of valves in here. So right overhead is the director's office.
This is HR, yeah.
Overhead,
Okay, so there's a set of valves there in case we need to get to it?
the bigwig upstairs. He's got his own separate bathroom, but that's his main cold water feed and hot water that go up and feed his single bathroom. He's got 1 toilet up there, 1 sink.
So if we do any plumbing work or all that, we have to come in here and shut it off down here?
Yeah, but same thing, if it's something just to change your batteries, you have that valve
yeah,
right on the
okay,
flushometer,
okay.
but if there's anything where you have to shut it down, they're right here,
Okay, that's good
overhead.
to know.
All right, same thing, they're labeled, you'll see them.
Also clean out plates in this office, right?
Yes, and that is actually for that's the sanitary stack that goes up and picks up his bathroom.
Okay.
So there's a clean out right there too.
So it's all...
Right on the other side was the HR office. These are my 3 plumbing lines, domestic. Cold, hot return, that's where they go through the wall. Basically, this half of the building you can shut off. I put a separate isolation valve. It wasn't called for, I just put it for testing. So you can shut off the cold right here. It'll isolate that side of the building if you want. for whatever reason. I just kind of put that in there for when I was testing. I need an extra valve in there. So the lines feed through this way, feed overhead this way. You have hot and cold line that goes up right here. There is a little kitchenette sink. Yep, valves for that. You have your 2 bathrooms on the other side of this wall, men's and women's. Hot and cold going there, isolation valves for that. Same thing with the men's side over here. Hot and cold for the men's side over here. On the other side of this wall, after that men's room, you have that janitor's closet with the mop sink. Yep. Isolation valves here for that. And we'll go through those lines, continue down that way to the left side of the building. I'll show you the main domestic cold water coming in. My plumbing side of my contract was 5 feet out the building, and that's it. I know right outside here you have a street valve, and this actually goes out to the pit out there. I think Vollers has to go out over that with you guys if they haven't already. There is a backflow preventer in that pit that services your domestic cold water and your fire sprinkler system. Same thing. Those backflow preventers stop any cross-contamination of anything outside of the site to come in. So those should be tested annually too. So right off the bat, you got your main valve. You can shut this off, shuts the whole building down. The pressure for the water coming into the building was extremely high. You're at 150 pounds. So we have a pressure reducing valve. So before the valve, you got your incoming water pressure 150. On your building side, you're at 70 pounds. If you ever want to adjust this, this is your set screw on top. Take it out, increases pressure, screw it down, decreases pressure. But you're at 70 right now.
That's common?
That's good,
Good.
yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah, this something ever needs to be serviced down the road. You have a valve there to shut off. You have a valve here to shut off. If you ever need to service this down 20, 30 years from now, whatever, it breaks, you need to replace it, something, that can be done. Like I said, you can shut that valve off, shuts off the whole building, shut this valve off, shuts off the whole building. Off of here, you have your outside hose bib right here, isolation valve. This is a trap primer box. Basically all the floor drains that you see in the mechanical room, just because they're never gonna accept any water in here really, so the traps don't dry up. This is a automatic system where there's water always kind of dripping down these lines into the traps, so they always have water in them. There's always
Is that same system in the other mechanical room too?
Yes, yes. Basically, there's even the ones in the bathroom overhead have them. They're just little brass fittings in the bathrooms, and they just drip water into the floor drains, just so they're always primed. This one, since it's feeding multiple, it's an electronic device. So your domestic water as it comes in, first thing it feeds now, this is your water filtration system. You only really need to do one thing with this. This comes pre-programmed from the factory. Your water filtration system, these are your resin beads. These never need to be replaced or refilled. These always stay in here. These are your brine tanks. Your brine tanks need to be filled with salt. We fill them up initially. I would check them every several months. You can just get any kind of granular salt. I got some bags from Home Depot. You just fill it up in there. When you fill it up, you have your overflow on the top right here. Just don't go above this.
Okay.
That's a lot of salt. You probably don't need to put that much in there. The way this system works, all 3 tanks are never running. It's on demand. So basically, if the building's calling for, there's multiple fixtures going, it goes at a 25 gallon per minute flow rate. So the tanks will automatically, over time, just cycle through each one, so they're always getting an even amount of use. But if the building's calling for 24 gallons per minute right now of water being used, 1 tank will be in use. If it goes over 25 gallons per minute, now we're up to 28, it'll go 2 tanks are being in use just to handle the gallons per minute of the flow rate. And same thing, now we go over 50, It goes to the next tank. This is an office building. You have a couple bathrooms, couple sinks. I highly doubt you even ever get to 2 running at the same time. Like I said, these are all pre-programmed. It has its own backwash cycle. That's what these 3 tubes in the back do. Every so often it'll, depending on the usage of it, it'll backwash itself just to clean anything out. The only thing you guys ever might want to do is just change the time on it. You just hit clock once, you can change the hour, up and down arrow, hit it again, change the minute. So this is a bypass valve. If you ever need to shut these off and not have your filtration system in service, shut all those off, you can still turn that on. You have water to the building.
Which one's the bypass?
This one right here. Yeah, you can see everything on this side of the bypass valve. You can see 1, 2, 3 all go into the filter. So they're all before the bypass. All right. And then everything on the other side of the bypass valve is all the outside. Out, out, out. So the other backflow preventer we have in here, this comes off the domestic cold overhead. There's a line that feeds down. Another backflow, this feeds your HVAC system in here for your heating, supply, and return. This is the makeup water for that. They come in, they check it, they make sure it's functioning properly. Same thing, your isolation valve for that, turn it off or on. Your main cold supply going in, hot coming out, isolation valve, isolation valve. I have this set to 140 degrees. You don't need to change it, and I'll show you why in a second. On your hot side coming out, the tank's set to 140. There's no water flow right now, so it's actually reading 130. Once the water flows, it might show higher on the thermostat, up to 140. But on this side of the wall, I have a mixing valve. So all the hot water goes into a mixing valve and then gets distributed out through the building, just because 140 degree water is hot at sinks and stuff like that. So I have the mixing valve set to 110 degrees. So anything going out to sinks anywhere in the building is never over 110 degrees. So this is your hot coming in on your mixing valve side. Again, right here you can see that's coming in at 130, just like that other thermostat showed coming out of the hot water heater. Dumping into your cold side of your mixing valve is cold water, and then also the recirculation line that recircs hot water throughout the building. Actually, some of that dumps into here too. So we're not just always shooting hot water, it's more efficient. So right here is your recirculating line water coming in, and this is your cold side coming in. I already have it set, like I said, to 110. These are your adjustments for your hot and cold coming in. This is your adjustment for that. And then as far as your recirculating line coming back in, dumping into here, this is your adjustment for that. This took me a couple days to really tweak it. You know, you gotta let the water run. So I kind of have it set to 110. On your hot side coming out, you have your isolation valve to shut off the water. You have isolation valve here to shut off the water going out. So basically this is all for the tank itself. You have your isolation valves, but really to shut off the hot water to the building, you can shut this valve off, these valves off, either one, doesn't matter, it's off. Hot water's off to the building. So this is your recirculating pump. This is circulating the hot water throughout the building, pumping it back in. Some of it dumps back into your hot water heater. And like I said, some of it goes into your mixing valve. Timer set on top. I basically have it set for 5 a.m. to 11 o'clock at night. The little switches here, it's basically like a Christmas light timer. You know, if you just close a couple of them, it'll decrease the time. These ones that are closed here, that's when it's off. All these ones that are open here, it's open from, like I said, 5 to 11, constantly recirculating. You do have your switch to shut it off. Power ever goes out, all automatic. It turns itself back on, it lights itself. You don't have to ever light any pilots, anything like that. Everything is done on its own. So we know too where our hot water heater is, just so the flow is from this point here where the domestic hot water goes. Flow for hot water is that way and that way, kind of splits off right there. Gas in the building is just to this mechanical room. The only gas appliances is that hot water heater and these 3 boilers. Your main gas line, and I'm sorry, the generator out back. That's natural gas also. Right outside that generator is the valve for the natural gas line too. I'll show you the main coming in here. This is your main gas line. This is a high pressure line, 5 pounds of pressure coming into the building. Here's your main shutoff. This is our regulator, reduces down the pressure from 5 pounds coming in to, it's measured by water columns. So it's a 27-inch water column. I think that over here, I think it's a 14-inch water column. That's probably equivalent to like 1/4 pound. So it drops drastically. Same thing as far as my plumbing contract. I pretty much took it from here. Where those yellow bollards are is the main gas that came in from the gas company. So this is your main gas coming in from the Pico side. All their regulators. So this last one goes out to somewhere for the bridge. I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, somewhere for the bridge. That's not us.
This goes out to the BMA.
Oh, okay, the tower.
Yep.
Oh, the tower has gas too? All right.
All right. So our 2 lines here. This is the gas I just showed you that feeds that mechanical room for the boilers and stuff like that. This is the 2-inch line that goes to the generator. Like I said, right at the generator too, like the setup I showed you out there, you have the same thing. You have a regulator, you have a valve there to shut off the generator if it ever needs to be shut off for whatever reason serviced. All right, but these are the main ones coming off the main gas train. And then that pit right there, like I discussed earlier, that's where your main domestic waters come in. The backflows are in that pit. There's main shutoffs down there. Main sanitary sooners right here at this cap coming into the building. Clean out for the outside if you ever need to clean out from here. Now this goes into that tank. And then the only other thing I installed out here is you have another ground hose bib right there, just because this is a sewage ejector pit. So if anything ever needs to be sprayed off, you can hook up your hose there. Right here is your valve in the ground. It's a T-handle valve to shut that off. That's a frost-free one too.
Okay.
So the stem of that goes down about 4 foot into the ground so that when you shut it off, all that water bleeds down into the ground, 4 foot down. To feed the little bit left on this side of the building, 3 lines, domestic cold, domestic hot, return. They are right overhead here. They come through. Yep, they go through this wall. They come through right overhead. Right overhead here. You have cold and hot feeding your sink. Isolation valves are overhead. Then you have 2 cold lines that go to your ice maker feed lines in the wall here. Valves overhead. Same thing, another clean out right there. Clean out right there, sanitary system. You also have a clean out behind the wall here. And that picks up. This sanitary line right here with the bands on it, and that goes up and picks up, and I'll show you upstairs, there's a mop sink upstairs and a kitchenette sink over there too. So our 3 lines overhead are right here, 1, 2, 3. They come through. I don't know if you can kind of see it from here. You see the stickers there, domestic hot, cold, return. And they just feed that mop sink upstairs and that kitchenette sink, and the valves are right here overhead. We'll go upstairs. Okay. So you have this line that's coming up right here, going through. There's another hose bib right outside there.
Yeah, right. Right, yep.
And there's a valve inside that room, overhead.
Okay.
On either stairwell, that's a flat roof up top. You have 2 sets of roof drains on either end. So you have this one stairwell, either end has roof drains. That other far stairwell, there's roof drains on either end. The roof drains consist of a roof drain that ties in, goes to the underground, and then there's an overflow drain. Your overflow drains go out to, what do you call them? Spouts that go outside the side of the building. You'll see them with little breast sprouts. They almost look like little tongue things. All right. So this is your overflow going out for the set of roof drains that are overhead on the roof. Your roof drain coming down is in this wall. There's a chase. That's coming down there for the one main roof drain. Your other 2 roof drains in that server room we couldn't get into. The other 2 roof drains in the opposite side are down in that server room. You'll see the 2 lines exposed coming down the wall. That's them right there. The one will go to the underground, and the other one you'll see looks like that one, pokes out the side wall. That's your overflow. The roof drains themselves are directly overhead. They're basically right here. So for whatever reason, if you do see dripping in either this end, I'll show you the other side too. It's probably coming from the roof drain, just in case. But you'll see if you take off these tiles, there's limited room between the steel and the ceiling height.
Okay.
It's tight.
I got you.
It's right there. So. All right. Those lines below with the isolation valves feed this mop sink. And they feed your kitchenette in here. The other roof drains are in this room in the back far corner. Oh, you do?
No.
No? You're really, I don't even think he's the, oh, okay. Thank you.
Need this one?
Nope.
Thank you.
So these are them over here. Like I said, and these 2 roof drains are overhead right here. All right. If I had to take a pretty good educated guess, this is my overflow and this was my main one. Kitchenette, if you remember down in the mechanical room downstairs, over by where the hot water heater is, you have your duct chase where the ducts are going up. You have the 2 water lines going across. Those isolation valves are for this sink. You'll see it's the only 2 water lines that go up with the ducts. The duct shaft is right on the other side of this wall. That's for that. The HR area we were in, where I said the valves are overhead in those 2 offices, that feeds the kitchenette sink and Joe's bathroom, which is right on the other side of this wall. Overhead on this roof, there are some roof drains. I will show you those, but also up on this roof, this line right here, which is also fed off of those valves downstairs in the ceiling that feeds Joe's office, that kitchenette sink. You have a hose bib up on that roof.
On the flat part in the middle room?
That shut off is still downstairs, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, so on that flat part, that's the hose. Got it.
Yep. Yep, it's actually, it's on that side wall, so it's on this flat roof.
Okay.
I don't even remember where the access is for
It's
this.
in the bathroom.
It's in the bathroom, the roof hatch?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
Your key should work.
But basically, the roof drains that are on this roofing system above, you have 2 right here, overflow, main drain.
Okay.
You have 2 over there, overflow and main. Overflows for these go out. There's one on that outside wall where I showed you the sanitary sewer came into the building. There's one overflow spout over there. And then there is also a set of roof drains that you will never ever get to that are right overhead here. Like I said, there's really no reason to get to them anyway. So same thing, we're right overhead of the main gang bathroom downstairs on the first floor, main gang bathroom here. Those valves to shut those lavs off are basically right about here underneath in that access panel. We'll go into the women's side, the isolation valve. So the main feed to shut off the toilets on either side, men's and women's, access panels right there. Okay, that's your main valve. And then same thing on this side, the valves that feed these sinks are in the access panel, which is basically right down below there. Kitchenette sink, that's in that first mechanical room we went to. Same thing as that other kitchenette. The duct shaft is right behind that wall. Plumbing lines go up that duct shaft. Isolation valves are right there.
On the other side.
Down in that mechanical room, underneath. Okay, so anything that's, except for the bathrooms where those valves are in the chase wall, anything that feeds up here is underneath. Yep. And the last thing up here is that mop sink, janitor's closet, and that was one of the first set of valves I showed you in that kitchenette. They feed from underneath. And then same thing with this stairwell. You have a set of roof drains overhead. Go down, there's an overflow with a spout outside, and then same thing down that opposite corner. And actually to get to that one is in the back server room. So at the bottom of these steps you have a floor drain. I'll show you why in a second. So your sump pump that's down here is just for that floor drain.
Just for that floor drain.
Just for that floor drain. It's a dual pump system, always just one pump that works. If gets a high gallons per minute rate, rainwater, whatever, the second pump will kick on. When we walk back outside, I'll show you. This just discharges outside onto the grade. This will have an alarm. You have three. So you have three floats in here. It's basically an on, an off, and an alarm. All right, water gets to a certain height, kicks it on. Water goes back down to a certain height. That float, go down, turn it off. If it ever gets above to the third float, that's the highest in the tank, the alarm will go on. This alarm will kick off. If your alarm does go off, you're down here. Say it goes off, I don't know, say there's a mechanical misfire and it's going off, it's not actually for water. You have a little silencer on the side, just to shut off the ambient alarm. Also right outside here you have another hose bib. That's your valve for your hose bib underneath there. All right, so your main water coming into this building, right here.
Shut that off, shut it off, and all done.
That's the main. Right above us is the one bathroom. Here's your main shut off for that bathroom. Over on this side, you have your other bathroom. Here's your main shut off for that bathroom. Sanitary lines overhead picking up that bathroom. Isolation valve for your drinking fountain. That is where your sanitary goes out. Again, there's another discharge pump outside. That's actually, again, that was by Vollers. That's a grinder discharge pump. That actually gets pumped all the way back up to the main pump that we saw outside of the administration building. And your hot water heater here. There's an electric hot water heater, no gas down here. Same thing. Domestic cold coming in, shut-off valve, going out, hot. This sink right here is on its own little sump pump. So this goes on and this gets up pumped overhead and pumped into the main sanitary that goes out the building. and that's it. Pumps it out, pumps it overhead. And that's it, and that's just for this sink.